Hey friends, it's Lil. Welcome back to my booktube channel. Today I'm going to be doing my June reading wrap up. Okay, so June I read a total of 10 books. Most of my books, however, were meh, sitting around like 3.5 stars. A little bit disappointing, but I did have a couple of standouts. I had one new 5-star read, and then I reread an Emily Henry book that I continued to give it 5 stars. For now, let's start with my first read of June, which was Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. A lot of these books in June, it's the middle of July now when I'm filming this. I waited far too long. So a lot of them I've kind of completely forgotten about, which kind of goes to show the 3-star ratings that I gave a lot of these books. This one followed Allie and Ethan, and it was I keep wanting to call it a second chance romance, but it was not a second chance romance. How about I just go ahead and read you the synopsis? There aren't enough labeled glass containers to contain the mess that is Allie Morris's life. Her mom died 2 years ago, and then her husband left, and she hasn't worn pants with a zipper in longer than she cares to remember. She's a professional organizer whose pantry is a disgrace. No one is more surprised than Allie when the first time she takes off her wedding ring and puts on pants with hardware, overalls count, right? She meets someone, or rather her dog claims a man for her in the same way he claimed his favorite of her 3 children, by peeing on him. Ethan smiles at Allie like her pants are just right, like he likes what he sees. The last thing Allie needs is to make her life messier, but there's no harm in a little summer romance, is there? So, not a second chance. It was kind of like a friends to lovers. Obviously the dog picked this man for her. I did like the setting. I thought it was giving summer vibes, and I really liked Allie's relationship with her children. But it really just wasn't a standout to me. I loved Annabelle's books in the past. I really enjoyed Nora Goes Off Script, which I gave 5 stars. So I will be reading her books in the future. Just this isn't the one that I would recommend you start out with. Next, I read For the Record by Juliana Smith. This is a marriage of convenience book between Rachel and Adam. It is book 4 in... Yeah, it is book 4 in her Wells Family series, and I've read all 4 books. This one is not my favorite, but it is one of my favorite of the books in her series. So the synopsis is, after accidentally marrying her best friend on a last-minute Vegas trip, Rachel decides that instead of getting an annulment, she and Adam could reap the benefits of marriage and play the system for his military benefits. This platonic, no-strings-attached marriage should be, on paper, easy. No problem, an incredibly attractive man putting a ring on her finger and bringing flowers home to her has no effect on her decision to keep this unattached. Except the more Adam plays into the dotting husband role, the more Rachel is seeing a life with him as more of a reality than a dream. Her priorities lie with her job and taking care of her dad, but her marriage has potential to make all of that slip away. Having Rachel as a wife made Adam's life almost perfect. Only there was a key piece missing in their marriage that he needed to share with her, despite it possibly driving her away entirely. Forced to overcome his fear of losing his closest friend, he is reminded that what happens in the dark must eventually come to the light. So I really enjoyed this book. I love the marriage of convenience trope. I really enjoyed that they were really close friends beforehand, so it wasn't super awkward and they were really trying to work through it. And just overall gave me all the warm and fuzzy. So really enjoyed it. There is one more book left in this series. Juliana just announced the title for it, The Fine Line, which follows a character that I've been dying to get his book for. So I can't wait. And not sure, I can't remember when it comes out, but I will be reading it. But for this one, I gave it 3 stars. Just wasn't a super standout to me. But if you want a quick, easy indie romance book, would recommend. For my 3rd book in June, I read Alive in Wells by Bailey Hanna. This is the first book in the Wells Ranch series. It is an indie book, indie author. It was available on Kindle Unlimited. One of my good friends, Melissa, recommended it to me. She said it's probably not going to be your favorite, and it wasn't my favorite, but it was a really fun, quick little cowboy romance, which is what I was in the mood for at the time. So I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. Again, not a standout. The beginning of June, really, really slow going for the books. A lot of 3 stars, but I did like the main characters. I thought the plot was interesting, which we will read the synopsis really quickly. The last place city girl Cicely Kennedy expected to end up was a cattle ranch, but she needs a job and refuge from her abusive soon-to-be ex-husband. If only her new boss, Austin Wells, would make it clear whether he hates her or wants her. His gaze makes her feel things she hasn't in years, though getting over her ex by getting under her grumpy boss isn't worth the potential fallout. Austin's a gruff, no-nonsense rancher who's seriously regretting letting his head cook hire her own help. As far as he's concerned, Cicely won't be sticking around for long. Nobody ever stays, and the wedding ring indent still on her finger makes her more trouble than she's worth. When Cicely's past catches up with her, Austin discovers that she's already placed a branding iron on his heart. He wants her to stay. First, he needs to keep her safe. So there's a lot of trigger warnings, content warnings to be aware of going into this book, which the author does list on Goodreads on this book listing. So definitely recommend checking those out before you hop into it. But if you're looking for a quick, easy cowboy rancher novel, not enemies to lovers, but they butt heads. There's a lot of great witty banter. Recommend that you pick this one up. Okay, next we have Crazy Stupid Bromance by Lyssa Kay Adams. This is book 3 in the Bromance Book Club series. I read the first 2 books last year and I'm finally slowly getting my way back into finishing the series. This one follows Alexis and Noah, and they are pretty close, like basically best friends, but Noah's always had feelings for Alexis, and Alexis is starting to develop feelings for Noah. They are coming together to help Alexis go through some family things that are happening in her life. Basically her stepsister appears one day and she's like, your dad is dying. She's like, my dad? I've never met my dad. So a lot of family drama going on, and Noah's doing what he can to help Alexis through this, and he has the tech background, so he's been helping her research and all this stuff. But it was a really fun book. I liked the main plot and I liked the subplot. Again, not a super standout, not my absolute favorite of the series, but I still gave it 3.5 stars. And the synopsis for this one: Alexis Carlisle and her cat cafe, Toe Beans, have shot to fame after she came forward as a victim of celebrity chef's sexual harassment. When a new customer approaches to confide in her, the last thing Alexis expects is for the woman to claim they're sisters. Unsure what to do, Alexis turns to the only man she trusts, her best friend Noah Logan. Computer genius Noah left his rebellious teenage hacker past behind to become a computer security expert. Now he only uses his old skills for the right cause. But Noah's got a secret. He's madly in love with Alexis. When she asks for his help, he wonders if the timing will ever be right to confess his crush. Noah's pals in the Bromance Book Club are more than willing to share their beloved manuals to help him go from bud to boyfriend. But he must decide if telling the truth is worth risking the best friendship he's ever had. So really enjoyed this one. I will still be continuing the series. I think I have 2 left. I don't think I'll get to them in July, but maybe in August I'll push to finish the series. Okay, next I read Mistakes We Never Made by Hannah Brown, and I was seeing a lot of very, very mixed reviews for this on Bookstagram and BookTube. Mostly negative. I just saw a couple positive reviews, so I decided to try to give it a shot, but I probably shouldn't have, or I should have DNF'd. I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. This one followed Emma and Finn, and it's a second chance romance, so that is really why I wanted to give it a shot, because I love second chance romance books, but this one was just not it, and I was not invested at all. I found myself kind of skimming through parts of the books, which I absolutely hate doing, but I wanted to see if there was some redemption later in the story that would have me maybe bumping my rating up a little bit, but it did not. But we'll get into the synopsis and then we'll move on, since it was only 2.5 stars for me and I don't want to dwell on a book that I really didn't like. 2 former debate team champions who almost fell in love years ago and are now stuck together on one wild wedding weekend. When bridesmaid Emma first sees groomsman Finn, she's reminded of all the mistakes she almost made with him. The date, the party, the kiss, that one night on the rooftop in New York. Each ended in heartbreak, and she would have been happy never to see Finn again. But when the bride runs away and both Emma and Finn are tasked with bringing her home in time to walk down the aisle, they end up on a whirlwind road trip down memory lane and might just fall in love along the way. They might have fallen in love, but I really didn't sense any connection between the two main characters. So, moving on. Okay, next I read The Winners by Fredrik Backman, which was my favorite read of June. I gave it 5 beautiful stars. I would give the series in total infinity stars. Now the first Beartown I gave 4, Us Against You I gave 4.5, and then The Winners I gave 5. But the way that Fredrik Backman is able to get us to be so invested in every single character in this small town. And I mean, in The Winners, there's so many POVs throughout all 3 books, but in The Winners, we're really bouncing around. There's so many different plot lines going on, but at the end, they all tie together. And I was driving for the most part while I was reading this book because I was traveling a lot for work in June, and I was trying so hard not to sob in the car while listening to this book. And I don't think I'm ever gonna fully emotionally recover from it. And that's why I was nervous to read The Winners, because everyone always says there's so much emotional damage, and there truly is. But it's just such a good book, and so many of the characters, I love them. One in particular, Mr. Benjamin Ovich, Benji, I love you. I understand the hype around you that everyone always gives you. And this book was just beautiful, and it was a big book. This baby was thick book. I read it I listened to it on audio. So it was a really long audiobook, but I would have listened to so many more hours of these characters just to stay in that world just a little bit longer. So beautiful. Totally recommend the Beartown series. I absolutely recommend doing audio. I really enjoyed the audiobooks for all the books. But yeah, it's a series that's going to stick with me for a while, and I can absolutely see myself rereading it in the future. Next, I read The Love That Split the World by Emily Henry. This was for a book club this month, and I gave it 2.5 stars. This was Emily Henry's debut novel, and it's completely different than her romance contemporary fiction books that she's been putting out for the last few years. This one was young adult, fantasy, magical realism elements going on in it, kind of sci-fi, not really sci-fi, but I just wasn't super invested in the characters. You can tell from this book compared to Happy Place, Funny Story, Book Lovers, how her writing style has improved over the years, which is really cool to see. I just really was not invested in the story. I was really just reading it to get through it so I could discuss it at book club, because I hate having to DNF a book club pick. I was really close to doing it for this book though. This one followed Natalie and Beau, and let me read you the synopsis because I don't want to give anything away for this book, since there's a lot of twists and turns that are happening and you're kind of figuring it out as you read it. Natalie's last summer in her small Kentucky hometown is off to a magical start until she starts seeing the wrong things. There are just momentary glimpses at first. Her front door is red instead of its usual green. There's a preschool where the garden store should be, but then her whole town disappears for hours, fading away into rolling hills and grazing buffalo, and Nat knows something isn't right. That's when she gets a visit from the kind of mysterious apparition she calls grandmother, who tells her, "You have 3 months to save him." The next night, under the stadium lights of the high school football field, she meets a beautiful boy named Beau, and it's as if time just stops and nothing exists. Nothing except Natalie and Beau. So, interesting synopsis, right? It was an interesting plot. Like I said, I just think maybe I wasn't in the right headspace while I was reading it, but it just wasn't my favorite. It didn't stick out to me. It just had me wishing for newer Emily Henry writing style, which I got to later in the month. But it was okay. 2.5 stars. I'm not going to remember it. I'm never going to reread it. Next, I read a thriller. She Started It by Sian Gilbert. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the author's name right, but here's to hoping, and if I didn't, I apologize. Like I said, this one was a thriller. I listened to this one on audio. I was just kind of in the mood for a thriller audiobook. I needed something that wasn't romance because I was reading a lot of romance in June. And this one was interesting. It follows 4 best friends. They are invited to the bachelorette party of a girl that they all bullied in high school. Interesting, right? Weird, suspicious. Why would you go to a bachelorette party of a girl that you bullied in high school? Just because for the most part, they were all saying, oh, free vacation, we get to take some cute pics for Instagram. No, I would immediately be like, red flag, not going. First off, whatever. No, it just wasn't it. It wasn't it at all. The audiobook was still pretty good. I caught on to most of the plot twists though. I still gave it 3 stars because I was engaged and invested for most of the book, but it just is not a thriller that stood out. And not that I would reread a thriller, but it's not one that's going to stay with me. I pretty much already forgot all about it. So synopsis time. Annabelle, Esther, Tanya, and Chloe are best friends, or were as children. Despite drifting apart in adulthood, shared secrets have kept them bonded for better or worse, even as their childhood dreams haven't quite turned out as they'd hoped. Then one day they receive a wholly unexpected but not entirely unwelcome invitation from another old friend. Poppy Greer has invited them all to her extravagant bachelorette party, a first-class plane ticket to 3 days of white sand, cocktails, and relaxation on a luxe private island in the Bahamas. None of them has spoken to Poppy in years, but Poppy's Instagram pics show that the girl they used to consider the weakest link in their group has definitely made good and made money. Curiosity gets the better of them. Besides, who can turn down a posh, all-expenses-paid vacation on a Caribbean island? The first-class flight and the island's accommodations are just as opulent as expected, even if the scenic island proves more remote than they'd anticipated. Quite remote, in fact, with no cell service and no other guests. The women quickly discover they've underestimated Poppy and each other. As their darkest secrets are revealed, the tropical adventure morphs into a terrifying nightmare. Yeah. I mean, it was good for, like, the summer vibes. The summer vibes and the setting, I was here for that. Just like the plot and the twists and the thriller aspect of it was weird. But whatever, it was a book of the month book that my mom picked. I finally got to turn it around on my bookshelf and I finally read it. So it's good. Just 3 stars. I will not remember it at all. Okay, next I read Because of Us by Nina Arata. This one was on my TBR because first, the cover is stunning, and second, it's a second chance romance, so I felt like I had to read it. This followed Josie and Wes. Josie comes back to their hometown in Tampa, Florida, which was cool. We love a Florida setting. I was not expecting it. There were places that I knew, which was weird, but also cool at the same time. But Josie comes to their hometown in Florida, and the feelings reignite, and it wasn't giving a standout second chance romance to me. It was giving, I don't know, it just wasn't a standout. I really don't remember much of the plot. Again, the writing style was just not gripping for me either. I really wanted to love this one because we all know, I reiterate it all the time, I love second chance romance books, but this is not one that I would ever reread or ever really recommend to people. It was perfect for the summer setting, summer vibes, reading a book set in Florida. I just would never reread it. But if this author writes more books, I would probably try them out in the future because for indie authors especially, their writing improves with each book. So potentially a future book I would like more than this. For the synopsis, Wes Miller gave me an unforgettable summer, but our chapter ended as quickly as those warm nights spent in his arms, and I left town with a broken heart. 7 years later, I returned stronger than I've ever been, and our worlds collide. His presence awakens emotions that should have been left in the past, and I'm overwhelmed with how desirable I feel beneath that familiar ocean-hued gaze. He wastes no time trying to right his wrongs with gifts that prove he hasn't forgotten a thing. The tattoos that mark his skin show he's changed. And the way he loves to hate my workout shorts tells me he worshipped my body just like he used to. There's no denying the fire still burning between us, but can I trust him? Can I give him my heart and go all in like we did that summer? Will forgiving him destroy the years of progress I've made? Is Wes Miller worth a second chance? So again, cute sounding synopsis. I just wasn't invested, which is totally fine. We're moving on. Lastly, I did a reread with my friend Melissa of Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and if I could just read Emily Henry books forever, I would love that. Give me all of my like autobi authors on repeat and I would be good for the rest of my life. Just make me read all of my favorite authors forever and I'll be good. Because I think I enjoyed this one even more the second time around. We did tab it. I used so many tabs. I love Nora and Charlie. I love Charlie. Love Charlie. He is debatably, yeah, honestly, I could probably say he's my favorite book boyfriend of Emily Henry. So that's saying something. But really enjoyed this book. 5 beautiful stars. If you haven't read any Emily Henry books, please go do so right now. I'm currently wearing my Emily Henry shirt for this video, which I love. But yeah, Book Lovers is just so good. I had a really great time rereading it with Melissa, and we had a great book discussion about it and answering all the book discussion questions at the back of the book. It's just so cutie. I love Sunshine Falls. I need to go visit this town in real life. And for the synopsis, for those of you who haven't read it yet, and if you haven't, you need to get on it immediately. Nora Stevens' life is books. She's read them all, and she's not that type of heroine. Not the plucky one, not the laid-back dream girl, and especially not the sweetheart. In fact, the only people Nora is a heroine for are her clients, for whom she lands enormous deals as a cutthroat literary agent in her beloved little sister Libby. Which is why she agrees to go to Sunshine Falls, North Carolina for the month of August when Libby begs her for a sister's trip away, with visions of a small town transformation for Nora, who she's convinced needs to become the heroine in her own story. But instead of picnics and meadows or run-ins with a handsome country doctor or bulging four-armed bartender, Nora keeps bumping into Charlie Lastra, a bookish, brooding author from back in the city. It would be a meet cute if not for the fact that they've met many times and it's never been cute. If Nora knows she's not an ideal heroine, Charlie knows he's nobody's hero, but as they are thrown together again and again in a series of coincidences no editor worth their salt would allow, what they discover might just unravel the carefully crafted stories they've written about themselves. Love Book Lovers, love Emily Henry. I cannot wait to keep rereading her books. They just give me such a big boost of serotonin and they make my month. So those are all 10 books that I read in June. We had some highs. We had some highs with the winners and Book Lovers, and we had basically everything else medium lows to lows with 3.5, 3 stars, 2.5 stars. It's fine. July's already off to a better start. We already have some great 5-star reads that I've already read and am currently reading. So before we jump into the books that I'm planning to read in July, let's talk about my June reading statistics. I read 1 physical book, 6 ebooks, and listened to 3 audiobooks. My favorite book was The Winners by Fredrik Backman, and my least favorite was The Love That Split the World by Emily Henry, but that's also really close tie with Mistakes We Never Made by Hannah Brown, because I rated them both the same. I read 5 library books and saved $91.66. I read 2 ARCs. I read 3,871 pages, and then my average star rating was 3.35. Boo. But in July, we're hoping that that average star rating is much higher. And yeah, those are my statistics for June. As far as July goes, I've already read 3 books already, and 2 of the 3 books have been 5 stars, which is just great. I read Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto, a novel love story by Ashley Poston, and then Business Casual by B.K. Borison. I'm currently reading The X-Files by Jessica Joyce, and then some other ones on my TBR are Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher, Speechless by Lindsay Lanza, which I've been dying to get to, and I'm hoping I can finally get to it this month. And then I'm also currently listening to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, so I'll probably jump into book 2 after I finish that. But July is looking up. It's looking great. I've already been on one vacation. I'm looking forward to my book retreat later this month with the girls, and hopefully we'll be vlogging a little bit of that, so I can't wait to post that on YouTube for you all. But that is my June reading wrap up. I hope you guys had a great June. I hope you're already having an amazing July, and I'm wishing you the best with your reads for the rest of the month, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in August to do my July reading wrap up and talk more about just all the fun summer plans. But hope you all are doing well, and wishing you a great rest of July. Bye!